Hey everybody. I was planning on going live in a little bit, but I mistake hit the live button, and you know what? There's no better time than now. Okay, very good. Now, um, number one, I want to say welcome back. Back in States, kind of sad for me, in Eretz Yisrael, and really, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. This week's Parsha is Parshas Shoftim. I'm Yossi Loloyan, and I make videos about Torah and Jewish life. Today we're gonna talk about a few things. We always do the summary of the Parsha, so we're gonna do that. And I always have to check to make sure that the audio is working. Okay. Well, it's working. And today we're going to say the summary, and we're going to speak about a certain anti-Semitic woman and how I'm not really going to talk about what she said or just how kind of gave me a realization. And then just, we're going to share a short story in connection to something that it says in the Parsha. It's going to be a little short this week. I believe it's going to be a shorter week based on what I have. And I want to say, obviously, that, all the learning that we do is for the safe return of the hostages and for the protection of the soldiers and for all Am Yisrael and for the entire world. There should be peace and Mashiach now. And I just want to mention the 6 hostages who at the beginning of the week we found out were murdered in the most terrible, terrible way. Sickening. And just to mention, one of the hostages who became very, very, he became a household name and very beloved because, just the exposure that we had to him, and it was obviously all of them, it's a terrible blow, but I feel like we all felt something so terrible when hearing what had happened to him, just because how people had become so attached. Anyway, So this is dedicated to them, and let's go and start with the parsha. So this parsha is called Parsha Shoftim because it speaks about, which means judges. It says Shoftim v'sheitrim titnu b'chol sharecha. You should have judges and policemen, people who enforce the law in all your gates, meaning everywhere. You should have them in all places. I do this. I just rattle off from Chabad.org. So Moshe instructs the people of Israel to appoint judges, law enforcement officers in every city. Justice, you shall pursue. You should pursue justice, and you have to administer without corruption, without favoritism, and crimes should be investigated, and evidence should be examined, and you need at least 2 witnesses for a conviction and a punishment. There are some exceptions, and we're actually going to talk about a story in connection to this, a story that I said, a pretty incredible story about the father of the Chacham Tzvi and the grandfather of Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Right? Rabbi Yaakov Emden tells this story. We're going to get into that in a second, or in a few seconds. Then in every generation, says Moshe, there will be those entrusted with the task of interpreting and applying the laws of the Torah. Very, very important. The tradition of Torah, which is why Judaism is the absolute truth till today. According to the law that they will teach you and the judgment they will instruct you, you shall do. You shall not turn away from the thing that they say to you, to the right nor to the left. Shoftim also includes the prohibitions against idolatry and sorcery, laws governing the appointment and behavior of a king. So appointing a king, and guidelines for the creation of cities of refuge, the Ir Miklat, for the inadvertent murderer. Also set forth are many of the rules of war. The exemption from battle for one who has just built a home, planted a vineyard, married, or is afraid and soft-hearted, which actually alludes to being afraid of sin. according to I forgot where the source for that is, but I don't think it's the only thing. But I think what the I think it's the Mishnah, but I'm not sure. I think what it says is that basically the only reason a person should be afraid is if he has sins, because if a person is where he's supposed to be, he has no need to fear from the sword of the enemy. The requirement to offer terms of peace before attacking a city, and the prohibition against wanton destruction of something of value, right? Bal tashchis. The exemption by the law that forbids to cut down a fruit tree. You're not allowed to cut down a fruit tree. And the parsha finishes off by talking about the egla arufa, special procedure to be followed when a person is killed by an unknown murderer, right? They find the body outside the city. It's in a field, and it shows the responsibility of the community and its leaders, not only for what they do, but also what they could have prevented, right? Because there's a whole ceremony that they have to do to say that we are not responsible for this person. We didn't spill his blood because we are responsible for, like it says, right? We have so much responsibility that if we're able to prevent something bad from happening, obviously that is our responsibility. So that's the parsha in a nutshell. Now, I wanted to share something with you guys, which how do I say this? I want to share something with you guys, which like, it started at the beginning of the week, and it was a real struggle that I've been having for a long time, and kind of came to realization that I think will help a lot of you. I think it'll be a value to. I hope it can be a value to everyone watching. So I left. I was in Israel, most beautiful place in the world, and I left on Sunday. I left on the day, as you know, we had found out what happened to the 6 hostages and the evil that was done to them. And it felt, I mean, people talking about how the skies were overcast for the longest time, and who knows how long. And it just reflected, how it must have been in the heavens. And I'm leaving, and I felt like this feeling, even obviously it's not rational, but this feeling of abandonment, like I'm abandoning my brothers. Like, here's this tragic thing happening. They're about to have, 6 funerals, levias for these people, and I'm just going, back to the States. And aside from it being this feeling emotionally, there's also this spiritual struggle. Like, when I was in Eretz Yisrael, it wasn't even a question of like, I had this energy and I got up in the morning and it was like, go to shul. It felt there was an incredible feeling without any work of my own, this incredible feeling of connectedness. And when I came back, it felt like it just all vanished, and going to Minyan was a struggle, and it just, I mean, obviously, starting work, getting back to, there's a bunch of distractions, but it's not like there wasn't distractions in Israel. It's just, obviously there's definitely an elevation of spirituality and holiness, and a descent. When you come in, you Eretz Yisrael, it's an elevation, and when you leave, it's not, because it's a holier place. And so, and I'm just struggling, and I'm like, what's going on? And I realize that every morning I wake up and I don't pay attention to the input, the first thing I start my day with, and the day drags on, and whatever, if it's social media or if it's just on my phone, and it's just a crazy amount of garbage of input, like not healthy input. And this parsha, Shoftim Shoftim, talks about, literally what it means is saying you should have judges and law enforcers in all your cities. But it says b'chol sharecha, on all your gates and all your openings. And we actually mentioned this last year also. And this is a very well known. This is very well known about this parsha, that I think it's the Sifsei Kohen, the Shach, who says this, that the eyes and the ears and the mouth, and these are all gates. These are all ways of entry into a person's brain, heart, and soul. And we have to make sure that we, have the right judgment and we enforce the right things, and we don't allow everything in. And I realized, and this is kind of like a realization that I had this week. It's like I have to do something. And so I spoke to my wife, and the phone has this thing where you can, limit what you can say. Unfortunately, the self control in this area I'm lacking because it's become such a habit. And I decided, you know, um, I need some help. And so I spoke to my wife. She put in a code, and for certain times of the day, I just can't access certain things, and it just allows me to stay focused on exactly what I have to do. On my days or entirely different days. And this lady, I don't even want to say her name. She was on the Piers Morgan show debating Shmuel B'Teach, and she said some really disturbing things. Amongst them, uh, implying that Jews who reject their Messiah that's radical Judaism, right? He implied that people who believe the Rebbe is Mashiach, and that's not something I'm going to talk about right now. But whether people believe it or not, people who believe that, because that means that by default of choosing him as Messiah, or thinking he's Messiah, that their Messiah is being rejected. That's radical Judaism, which is like, no, it's actually fundamentally Jewish to reject him because it doesn't fit into any of the qualifications of Mashiach. And that's aside from the fact that they worship him as God. But it was just so crazy. And Beryl Solomon spoke about this, not regarding that thing, but later on, how she said she's going to pray for the conversion of Rabbi Shmuel B'Teach. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because it totally consumed me, and I kind of I was supposed to be preparing for this video. This is something I do weekly, and I have a long way to go. With content creation, there's so many different hats you have to wear, and I was just so consumed by it. I hadn't listened to the whole thing. I saw clips, and then I started, seeing what Beryl Solomon wrote. Had the video he posted, and I saw Shmuel B'Teach's daughter, what she said about it. Forgetting her name. Anyway, his daughter, who's very much on social media and very much very strong for the proper way that women are supposed to be. Very against immodesty, and very for real women's empowerment. Anyway, I don't agree with everything she says, but incredible stuff. When I saw those things, I'm like, okay, I got to watch the whole thing. And that was me basically saying that this thing, which I thought was important, is like that is more important than my priority, which again, I set myself a priority that I make this Parsha video. And I just was there. This was yesterday. I'm sitting there listening to it, and then afterwards, I'm stopping and I'm thinking about, I have to make a video. I have to make a video. She spoke about the Rebbe, and yes, Rachalea. Thank you, Rachalea. Not her name, not B'Teach, but Shmuel's daughter. Thank you, Mendy, for mentioning that. And I'm listening. And then I'm thinking, okay, this is something which I think I can make a video about, and I could totally, just put her in her place. Not that I don't think she's watching my videos or anything. Both the people I mentioned, are way more known than I am. But I just felt like I want to do something. Like I was itching, and I stopped, middle of the video, and I turned on my recorder, and I start like recording different things so I don't forget, thoughts that came to my mind. And it totally consumed me. And I kind of, this was an idea of me deciding to allow input or allow different things when I had to put Shoftim and Shoftim, right? I had to put a judge, and I had to enforce that. No, now this is not the thing for that. I have to focus on what I need to do. And so in a funny way, like me being consumed by this being so strongly affected by this anti-Jewish, Jew-hating woman who's such a gaslighter, it made me think like that's not the right thing, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not going to make a video about this, or that I'm not going to ever address this. If I have the time, I will. I want to, and I think I may have some things of value to point out, not to even attack her, but to actually show the things she highlighted were really about the Rebbe were actually beautiful. I didn't exactly go into, anyway, I don't want to talk about the actual video stuff, but the point I'm saying is that I realized, and the funny thing is that I realized this by way, inadvertently, because of a Jew-hating woman, and just the entire experience that I had this week of the feeling less spiritual and realizing that I had to make some changes, and I'm still, there's a lot of things I need to make, and but this idea that I really have to watch what I prioritize, and it's just a funny thing how life works, so I just wanted to share that, and there's so many distractions, and the Yetzer Hara, and the distractions and the Yetzer Hara, and the stuff that take you away from what you're supposed to do, and your mission, and your way of serving Hashem comes in so many forms, and sometimes you feel like you have to, like I'm like, I have to do this because she's with the Rebbe, and she's attacking, and she's blood libel, like just going crazy, and then like it's like, and it's actually funny because Rachalea Taktuk, thank you, man. She mentioned how, like, don't defend the Rebbe. The Rebbe doesn't need your defense, right? And it's so true. It's like there are people who are more qualified than I am to do this. Beryl and Rachalea and so many people on Twitter, like, they do such a good job of just. I mean, RFK even came out and like said, like, you're talking nonsense. Like, the Rebbe is one of the most unifying figures. But the point was, like, everything will be fine. There's no reason to stress this. This going into a frenzy of, like, I have to do this. Like, everything's fine. Today's Friday, and a lot of times, and this is another thing, where, and I just read something about how the Yetzer Hara on Friday. I actually saw this. A friend of mine, Solomon Berezin. I think it's called the Ebb and Flow podcast on YouTube. He's all over social media. Solomon Berezin, or maybe Solomon Ezra is his name. Anyway, go check him out. But he was saying also that Erev Shabbos, there's this unholy spirit that tries to get people feeling like they haven't finished tasks, and they have to, and to feel incomplete, and it tries to sow discord. It's a known thing, right? That the Satan tries to make it that husband and wife fight on Erev Shabbos. And it's like this feeling of, like, but I must, like this feeling of discontent of, like, something's going to go crazy if you don't do it. And I just came to this realization. And again, it's just so funny how it all ended with this woman who hates Jews. In a way, somehow I found that something good came about this, that it affected me in such a good way where I can, like, just calm down. Everything is okay. And for me, it's with social media, right? Like I stress so much about it. And it's like, I'm one person. I don't have the team yet. I don't have what I want. And it's like, it's okay. It's fine. I'm going a bit of a rant, but I just wanted to say this because, like, I feel like a lot of people get stuck with this. I'm sure a lot of people get stuck in this, where it's like this feeling of not being content, and feeling like when they do this, they'll be okay, or if they do that. And it's like, pursue your goals and strive for more, but also know that everything is in God's hands. And whether it's anti-Semites saying horrible things and feeling like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? It's like, God's in charge. Everything's okay. Now, I said I was going to say a story. So one of the things that it says, and we mentioned this in the summary, mentions in the parsha that a person, that in order to have a ruling, in order to rule certain things, you need two witnesses. Now, happens to be that for in Aguna, a woman who doesn't know what happened to her husband, if somebody comes and testifies that the husband died, and he's obviously, it's examined and investigated, and he seems to be telling the truth, that even in many cases, even one witness is accepted. There's kind of like a leniency. But there's an incredible story about Rabbi Yaakov Emden's grandfather, Chacham Tzvi's father, his name was also Rabbi Yaakov. He was, I think the stories take place in Vilna and Krakow throughout the story, but he was running away from the Cossacks. and he got separated from his family because of just everyone was trying to find a place to be. His wife and her brother and her family, her father, they ran away. They were in one place, and he had to go somewhere else, and he ended up being in the as they say, the wrong place, the wrong time, and the Cossacks gathered everyone into the square, and he the way the story goes is that there were some Jewish people who actually saw from far. They were hiding. They would see from far that the sword was raised over his head, and that he threw and the Cossack who was going to kill him, brought down the sword, and they saw Rabbi Yaakov, his body falling. So, after some time, when the tragedy had passed, and people were trying to find the whereabouts of their family, so the people, I think this happened in Krakow, because Rabbi Heschel of Krakow is a big guy and a very great Torah scholar, and he was consulted here. Basically, Rabbi Yaakov's wife and her family were trying to find the whereabouts of Rabbi Yaakov, and they found these people who were witnesses to his death. So they went and they did the investigation, and they based on the very credible testimony of the people who had witnessed what happened. He said that Rabbi Yaakov's wife can remarry because he's dead, but she didn't want to. She said, "No, I don't want to," and she didn't want to get remarried. I'm not sure if she thought that her husband was still alive. She had this intuition, or if she just didn't want to get remarried. But what ended up happening was that about 6 months later, Rabbi Yaakov shows up, and what happened was that for some reason Hashem, put this crazy idea in this Cossack's head. In one source I read that it was because he saw how young he was, and he had mercy on him. So instead of hitting him with the sharp side of the sword, he hit him with the blunt side of the sword. Another source says that he kicked him and just put the sword down. Whatever the case was, it very much looked like he had died, because they saw the sword coming down on him. But at the end of the day, his life was spared, and he ends up running. Rabbi Yaakov ends up running and hiding amongst other dead bodies that were killed by the Cossacks, and covering himself in whatever fabric he could find, and surviving off bitter herbs in the wilderness for like 8 days, till he finally was able to escape. And so obviously their testimony was sincere, and halachically, technically, the right decision was made. But when Reb Heschel, the great guy, Reb Heschel, heard about this, he actually decided he would never ever give a heter, permit another aguna, a woman whose husband's status is not certain, never give another heter. But that's a crazy story, but just connected in connection to the idea of to the commandment that we have to have witnesses, two witnesses. Afterwards, Rabbi Yaakov and his wife gave birth to the Chacham Tzvi, the great Chacham Tzvi. It's funny, actually, and Mendy, if you're online, you might remember that Avner Gold's books, and I would recommend this. It's historical fiction. He had 8 books, and then he came up with a few more actually about the Chacham Tzvi. But some of them, the newer ones, some of them were about the Chacham Tzvi. But the main character in the first 8 books, almost throughout the entire thing, his name was Shlomo Polichever. Amazing Polichever family. I'm just bringing it because he actually brings a story and he kind of weaves it into a fictional but historically, accurate story, and it's almost verbatim this story. So it's just interesting to see how, obviously, this author Avner Gold, if that's his real name, he took a story that happened with Rabbi Yaakov Emden, with Rabbi Yaakov Emden's grandfather, Chacham Tzvi's father, and brought it in historical fiction. One of the books It talks about Shabtai Tzvi, and just the tragedies and the realities and also the beauty of the Jewish people at the time. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I hope that this episode of Parsha Shoftim brought you some value. And I'm hoping to, I've been saying this for a while, but I'm hoping to bring some fresh stuff to, content wise. And it's just, there's a lot of things I'm dealing with right now. And I appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch these videos. And I hope it brings you values. If you made it to the end, you're an absolute legend. Smash the like button, subscribe, share it, and consider supporting the channel. That will allow, really, I mean, I have a lot of work to do on my end, but the more funds that we have in order to do this, the more I can invest into this, and I can bring you, if you are enjoying the content until now, just get bigger, better, more quality and quantity. So guys, it's been great. I enjoyed sharing that with you. Comment below if you thought that if you enjoyed that, or if it was TMI of me sharing something from my life that I thought might give other people value. If that was the right thing, or if that was something you enjoyed, I think it was the right thing for me. But I just want to know what you guys think.